or women-owned businesses, and then we'll go in, we'll take a, depending on the time, we might take a slight break, answer some questions, and then go into Buy American compliance, and then we'll also talk about what's the future as far as our internal compliance program and review that we're doing. So overall, Keller as a company, as far as the U.S. offices are concerned, since 2012, we have had over $1 billion in federal government contracts. So that's a really big deal. Obviously, $1 billion is a lot of money, but if you really think about how many federal projects might be coming across your desk, whether it's because you are, it's a pre-bid or pre-qual, or you actually, the actual contract has been executed. If you were, for whatever reason, we were to become debarred from government work and had to remove all our federal contracts, how would that change your business? And that's something you have to really look at. So we have to do whatever it takes to make sure that we are compliant as far as dealing with OSCCP, which we'll talk about later, and any other regulations that go along with federal compliance. And so we must ensure that we're making a good faith effort to remain compliant. Debarment from federal government contracts would be detrimental to our business, like I said before, because we have so much money tied to federal contracts. And so where are we right now? So earlier this year, we did, I want to say it was probably around June-ish, June, July-ish, we did an internal audit. And so we audited one of the companies that we felt would have a better result, just to kind of get a baseline or a heartbeat of where the company is generally, because we know there's some companies that are fairly new because they were newly acquired, and we haven't been able to really get, really touch them as far as it comes to training one-on-one. So the companies that we thought, yeah, we've done a good job with training them, let's revisit and see where they are. And so we just figured that if they're not doing well, then we just kind of lump everybody together. And so what we found was we audited 13 offices based on a couple of things. So we went based on the dollar amount of their federal contracts that they had that were active. So 100% of the projects we audited that were over $20 million. We did 50% for the ones that were between $5 million and $20 million, and then 5% of the projects between $10,000 and $5 million. And so what we found is that all 13 of the offices that we audited had some type of issue, which was of major concern for us here, because it's our job to make sure that our company or the company is compliant in all areas. So we wanted to go back and see where our gaps were to make sure that we are communicating well and providing the training, and that's what we are here, why we're on this call or webinar today. So some major things that we found was 30% of the offices that were audited didn't have documented good faith effort. They had no proof that they were doing any recruitment practices with minority or female organizations. We had 62% of the office who either did not conduct any EEO meetings or were using outdated EEO minutes. 100% of the offices had outdated internal posters. So whether it was the EEO policy, the new ethics poster wasn't posted, or they were posting both, the old and the new, which was alarming as well, because if we're audited and they're looking at our posters, that's something that, which could be easily checked off as we've done it. The federal auditor could easily ding us on that. 31% of the offices weren't properly using the applicant log, where they were not documenting what happened to an applicant. Was an applicant referred to the union? Did we hire them? Did we find that they weren't qualified? We didn't know what happened. And again, that is something that is asked when we have audits from external agencies. And then 92% of the offices did not solicit any business or quote from minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses. And so I talked about what we did internally as far as our internal audit. The reason why, one of the major reasons why we look at these areas is because as federal contractors, OFCCP, which is the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Program, it's a unit under the Department of Labor. They are the agency that comes in and checks this on a federal level to make sure that we are compliant as federal contractors. So they're reviewing our hiring practices. They're reviewing how we promote, who we promote, when we promote them. They're looking at how we pay our employees. Is there pay discrepancies? Thank you. And then the four major groups that they look at are females, minorities, individuals with disabilities, and protected veterans. So they're looking to make sure that we aren't doing anything or have policies internally that will prevent those groups from moving forward or moving upward in our company. And so you might say, Joy, well, I've never had an audit. What actually triggers one? So it could be a couple of things. It could be that it's randomly selected, or OFCCP just decides to select a project that you're working on, or decides to select your office for whatever reason. One of the major things that I've noticed in the past few years since doing this is that the mega construction projects, which are federal projects that are awarded over $25 million in federal aid, tend to be projects that I can almost guarantee that they'll be audited. And so if you're on a project, whether it's you're being awarded as a contractor or a subcontractor, anything out of that $25 million or more, chances are, I would say probably 90% of the time you're going to be audited, depending on the duration you're on the job. And even after you leave the job, they can still come back and audit us, and that has happened before. Okay, and so an audit from another division under Department of Labor, whether it's OSHA, Department of Transportation, Wages and Hours Division, those are some other offices that fall under the same umbrella as Department of Labor along with OFCCP. So if we get audited, and this has happened in the past, we've gotten audited under Wage and Hours, and they found some issues with an employee's pay, and they had questions. We were able to close it out, and a couple of months down the line, that same project gets audited under a whole other division. So that might be a reason why you get audited. And then, of course, our EEO-1s, which is our annual reporting we send to Department of Labor, just kind of giving them a screenshot of what our employee population looks like based on gender, race, and their classification, employment classification. And so while I'm talking about audits and what triggers them, if an auditor comes on site, I just want to remind you or tell you for the first time that you need to make sure that you get in contact with me, and then if I need to get anyone else from the compliance team involved, then we'll definitely do that. We are here to partner with you as you go through any external audit, and so because we have the experience, we know what and what not to give, what not to provide them, and what questions to ask, and what they're looking for. And so you might have only seen this for one or two times, depending on what position you're in, but I've done this for across the whole company for most of the subsidiaries. So I kind of have I definitely have an idea of how to reduce the damages if there are damages, let me say. All right, so requirements and utilization targets. So as federal contractors, we're required to demonstrate effort towards affirmative action. And I think, I'm not going to say I think, I know we've been in the habit of just doing the EEO meetings, checking off boxes just to say we get things done. But unfortunately, that's not what OFCCP is looking for. They're looking for us to demonstrate a good faith effort. They want to see that we're going out to those job fairs. They want to see that we are developing relationship businesses as well as minority and female recruitment sources. They want to see us more involved in the process and not just wait back and just send letters as we've been doing in the past. So the overall target that is for federal contracts is they're looking for us to be at 6.9%. I'm almost positive right now we're not at 6.9. We can run those numbers based on Keller overall or your particular office. Just let us know what you want to see. This kind of gives you an idea of where you are right now. But I'm pretty sure we're not there. And then internally, Keller, we have decided that we would like to have a 6.9% veteran goal of retaining or recruiting veterans. And then minorities, target utilization for minorities, and this can vary based on where the project is, where your office is. And sometimes this number is provided within the contract. But OFCCP has given us a guideline of what they're looking for, and we can definitely share that with you. But our goal is to definitely recruit minority and females.
Okay, so with relevant laws and provisions, the Executive Order 11246 is the law that prohibits discrimination against race, color, sex, religion, and national origin. With the Section 503, the Act prohibits discrimination against qualified individuals with disabilities. So as long as they're qualified and we can accommodate them with reasonable requests, we cannot discriminate against individuals with disabilities. With VEVRA, it prohibits discrimination against veterans. With Immigration Reform and Control Act, it requires all employers to keep Form I-9s and e-verify all of our employees, and it can also audit us to ensure that we are completing the Form I-9s correctly. Depending on certain projects, they may require us to provide proof that our employees are being passed through E-Verify, correct. Title I of Americans with Disability, again, it's discrimination against qualified individuals on the basis of their disability. Title VII prohibits discrimination against basis of race, color, national origin. So these are all the laws and provisions that protect all types of groups. With the Federal Highway Administration, they're under the Department of Transportation, so they are responsible for the EEO and affirmative action part of federal highway projects. Anything that's $10,000 or more, and that includes Davis-Bacon, will most likely have an annual EEO sort of report that is typically known as the FHWA 1391 form, which if you do have any of those requests, we can complete from you here. And then we have the Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act. That's in reference to projects in certain cities or states that require us to hire employees that are either residents of the community or are low-income employees. The OFCCP audits and reporting, each race, gender, and classification is reviewed independently. So they will view and review our EEO-1 reports and veterans reports for the year, and based on that, they will make decisions on whether they want to come on site or or requests further documents. This applies to all type of work. It does not matter if we're not on a federal project, we are still required to follow OFCCP regulations and laws, regardless of the type of project, because we are considered a federal contractor.
Okay, thanks, Jesus. So basically, since and just collecting the data over the historical data over the past few years, as of this month, we've done 14 audits, or OFCCP has conducted 14 audits with this, or they call them internal reviews or compliance reviews. And out of those 14, we ended up in conciliation agreements with 12 of them. And what conciliation agreements are is basically, instead of now sending us down the path towards being debarred from government work, OFCCP says, hey, you know what, you guys made some type of effort. What we want to do is monitor you for a period of 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years. It can be up to it can be any duration that they say, and we report to them. We show them our good faith efforts as far as the routine. We show them our applicant logs. We go through the whole process all over again after they do their initial review, where they gather documentation just to determine where we are as a company. We've had 12 out of 14 end up in that, and so that is a major red flag when we review them. We've had one that has successfully closed, and we were still waiting for feedback on one as well. And so, how do we get from maybe not having a affirmative action program within your office to now creating one? And that's what we're going to kind of walk you through at this point. If you're at a point that you're not sure what to do, again, please reach out to me. So the first thing we would recommend that you do is to establish a female and minority recruitment source. I know some offices work with some nonprofit organizations in the area. Some work with schools that have this demographic there. And so we ask that you build and contact these your recruitment sources and build relationships with them, maybe by attending jobs, doing seminars, what have you, making phone calls, just to let them know that you're here and you are in the area and you are wanting to have them refer qualified female and minority candidates to them. And so other places that you can also look is OFCCP has a database that you can search through. You can easily select the city, state, zip code, I believe county also, to come up with a list of possible organizations that you can reach out to as well. And so this is the this is the minority and female recruitment source tracker. So as you build your recruitment sources, we're asking that you now document their information within the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet actually is EEO Guide, which is will be available on the portal on SharePoint under Human Resources. So we'll send you the direct link so that you have it. And so we ask that you input all the information about the recruitment source, and also when you contacted them, who did you contact and what was their response. OFCCP loves seeing these sheets, so then they'll ask you, what was the outcome when you contacted this organization? Did they respond? Did they say they weren't interested in working with you? Was there no answer? They're going to ask that. And so I will need to have that information in front of me to be able to communicate that back to an external auditor if we are ever audited. Okay, and so part of the recruitment effort is that you can send letters to these organizations, these minority and female organizations. You can send letters directly to them. And we've already created these letters for you so that you can, all you have office information in, the name, the information, or the contact person for the organization, what you're hiring for, what positions you're hiring for, and then sign the letter and send it, and then continue on with your follow-up. That, again, is available in the guide. We don't want you to have to recreate the wheel when we already have this documentation available for you. So we have a letter for just for offices or projects that are non-union, and then we also have for union letters as well. Okay. Our applicant log. Biggest thing with that is we've gone through the effort of trying to recruit new employees to come in, or new candidates to come into the company, but we also need to know who's coming in and what happens once they come in. So this is another way of tracking it. It's an Excel sheet, also as a Word document. Again, it's in the guide. We'll share that with you. You can now put what recruitment source or referral source sent them. Was it an employee? Also, what position are they applying for? The biggest thing that they are looking for when they audit us is what happened to the applicant. Did you hire them? Did you did they reject the offer? Were they not qualified? They want to know what happened. So they want to make sure that we're giving each candidate that comes through the door or we receive their application a good chance or a good shot. Okay. So another thing that we're working with the offices to develop is, if they don't already have something in place, is creating a on-the-job training. So with the on-the-job training, we want to give our employees an opportunity to be able to upgrade their skill sets while they're employed with us. So, okay. And so sometimes it might be that the project that you're working on already has a program built in, and you just need to participate in it. Sometimes it just might be that you already have a program internally, but it's not really documented. So you now have to take the extra step to document it so we can show proof. The biggest thing in all this is documentation. If you're doing it and it's not documented, basically you're not doing it because you have no proof. So that's what we need to be able to do at this point. So you want to notify recruitment sources that, hey, you know, we have these training opportunities. Let your candidates know, possible candidates know about this, people that might be interested in the company know about this, and again, maintain that program. And if you have an employee that is interested in doing something that might complement what is going on in the field as of right now, but maybe it's not something that we offer internally, you do have the option to provide monetary assistance for apprenticeship programs and training. So that's something that you can keep in mind as well.
So for EEO state and federal posting requirements, established relationship with a new vendor. It's called True Compliance. You can go on the website. It is a personalized website for Keller where it provides a packet where it includes the state, federal, and Keller's ethic poster, as well as Davis-Bacon and the Federal Highway Administration posting. Any posters that are purchased through the website are guaranteed for a year of replacement. So if there's any state or federal regulations that or laws that have been changed, they will automatically send you a poster to replace the ones that you have. They also provide binders that you can have in your truck if you're in a project that does not have a location where you can display it, as long as your employees are aware of where those posters are located within your truck or container. then that will be suffice. We also have, within the Keller cart, we have the Safe Call, which is our ethics poster, as well as the EEO policy and the sexual harassment policy as well, that should be posted at all of our sites, offices as well.
And so I just want to point out something really quick as far as our internal posters are concerned, since I have everyone on the call. So I've seen where a few offices are posting both of these posters. Whether it says Hayward Baker or Keller, the one on the right is an outdated poster and should be removed and discarded. The new poster is the Speak Up with Safe Call, which is on the left. And so that you are aware of that. The one on the left is an external company that handles our internal ethics and compliance calls, and so it's calls are redirected to that third party who takes those calls, and then an investigation is started from there. So just keep that in mind. If you happen to see those posters on site or in your offices, please remove the outdated ones.
So with EEO minutes requirements, we typically want our offices to run them on a 6-month period, as well as with the job sites. Most likely your contract will state how often your client may require you to have EEO minutes. But at a minimum, we do it at the start of the job if they remobilize or demobilize, and anytime we have a new hire as well. We do have templates that are also in the EEO guide that you can use when you do have a meeting as well. Ensure that your employees all know who the EEO officer is, which is Linda Kosmicki, and or the EEO designees, which are our compliance team, which are here on the call, as well as where the EEO and harassment policy is. During your meetings, always encourage your employees to assist you with the recruitment of your minorities and women, referrals and things like that to help us with our company goal. Retain copies of all of your EEO meetings and everyone who has attended, because again, there are project specifics requirements, and then there could be also OFCCP requirements as well.
And then let me add to what Jesus just said. We've seen it where we are required to have EEO meetings based on the project, maybe on a monthly basis or whatever the duration is, and which is more frequent than what we state as a company. And final payment or any payment is held up because they don't have proof of those meetings being held. So you definitely want to make sure you're reviewing your contracts to make sure that you are compliant with whatever the requirements are for their meetings or for the meetings.
So within the templates and within the guide, we have the supervisory and office personnel meetings guide, and we also have one for job-specific personnel. You're welcome to use these two templates, which will also include sign-in sheets and are specific to those type of work, whether it's office personnel or job site personnel.
Okay, so in this process, we've talked about recruiting employees, getting employees in, documenting what is happening with those employees, and also training employees. So the other end that OFCCP looks at is that they want to know, are we reaching out or making a good faith effort to reach out to minority and female suppliers or vendors? So often on state websites, they maintain a list of sources that you can review. Some contracts would have that requirement built in that you have to, as if you are subcontracting out or buying materials, they have a percentage that you have to go for the project that they have to meet, and they ask the subcontractors to help in contributing to meet that goal. So what we advise you to do is definitely check out the website, the state website, or the state website for where the job is located, and maintain any documentation that you have with, or correspondence that you have with that supplier or that subcontractor, whether it's by phone or by email. You want to make sure that you're keeping that, as well as if you're using Groundworks, you want to make sure that you are notating in Groundworks that this is a DBE or WBE business, so that we can also keep track of that dollar amount for the supplier or vendor as well. And one thing I want to also mention right now is that we're asking, or we require that any vendor that you're using, supplier that you're using, be run through sanctions-based. And sanctions-based is it's a third-party system that we use that is connected to EPLS, or the excluded party list, which lists any vendors that are debarred. So we want to make sure that we're not giving work or awarding work or buying from contractors that are subcontractors or vendors or suppliers that are debarred. And so there is an online self-paced training in the system that you can take a look at. However, we are here and we're available to walk you through using it. One thing I want to note is if you're already using sanctions-based, that we are switching from having an office account or a central office account to having an individual account set up by person. Just because of the security protocols that sanctions-based has now, it's making it difficult to have a singular account for the office. So we will be sending out an email information for individuals shortly. So preparing for a compliance audit. So periodically, like I said, we will be selecting, internally, we'll be selecting offices or even projects for these audits or these internal reviews. And then also you might be selected for an audit by a government agency. So you want to make sure that you're documenting your good faith efforts. You want to make sure you have your EEO documentation in place towards meeting your goals. And then, and so just to recap everything that we just touched on, we've talked about the female and minority recruitment source tracker, where you're keeping a catalog of all the recruitment sources or organizations that you are potentially will be working with and who you've sent documentation or letters out to, or you've gone to their job fairs. You want to make sure that you're notating everything, whether it's by email or on the Excel sheet that we shared with you. You want to make sure your labor law posters are up to date, as well as your internal EEO policies and ethics posters, whether it's on the job site as well as in the office. You want to make sure that you're having those EEO meetings. Those EEO meetings are not just meant to be just to have them. It's a way for us to communicate where we stand as a company when it comes to diversity and being fair to our employees in regards to them upgrading their skills and what we tolerate and don't tolerate as a company. So we want to make sure that information is going out. We want to documentation of the use of DBEs and WBEs, as we said before, and you want to document any training that you're having. Also, you want to include, I skipped over one, make sure that when you're using Groundworks that you're checking the boxes when it comes to federal projects so that it can make sure that the right verbiage is ending up on your POs as necessary. Does anyone have any questions about anything before we go into Buy American? All right, so we'll just go ahead and get into Buy American. If a question does come up, we'll still have an opportunity to ask your questions at the end. So, Buy American compliance. Again, where are we as a company? Like I mentioned earlier, we did do an internal audit, and on this side with the Buy American, we audited 16 projects. And then 4 of them were fine, and however, 12 of them had some issues with documentation. So the major thing that we found in doing this internal audit is that they either, the certification letters, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, is that the certification letters or the letters from the suppliers did not reflect the appropriate Buy American or Buy America provision. So with the Buy American Act, there's basically two acts, and I'll go into both. I'm going to start with the Buy American Act of 1933. It generally applies to all contracts administered by a federal agency. Generally, it does not apply to federal-funded projects administered by state and local governments. So this act requires that domestic construction material be used. So all construction materials or equipment that will be permanently remain or permanently left in the structure on the job site or in the ground must comply with this act, the Buy American Act. And so you might ask, what is domestic construction material? So there's a couple of different ones. So we have the unmanufactured construction material can be mined or produced in the United States, or we have manufactured construction material, which is made in the U.S., or was made or put together in the U.S., and then we have cost of components mined, produced, or manufactured in the U.S. exceeding 50% of the cost of all the components, or we have what is called the off-the-shelf or commercially off-the-shelf. And if you are like going to Home Depot or Lowe's to get some material for their project, you want to make sure, and it is a Buy American project, you want to make sure that it is labeled Made in the USA, just to make sure that it's still compliant. And so you might have a situation where you have temporary material that will not stay on the job site. It might be removed at one point. And so temporary materials such as casing, false work, shoring, and other items may not apply if entirely removed from the job site. Material that is temporary but might be incorporated down the line because of some changes, or you just think it might just be easier to keep it there, I would definitely advise you or instruct you to reach out to David or myself for guidance on how to deal with that, especially if that temporary material does not comply with the Buy American Act. Okay, so we just talked about the Buy American Act. Now we're going to talk about the Buy America Act of 1983. The Buy America Act applies to projects funded by federal agencies such as the FAA, FHWA, FRA, FTA, and Amtrak. So the administration of these contracts could be handled by a non-federal agency such as DOT or any private agency, but they're being funded by any of the agencies that I listed above or I said above. Okay, so this act requires that 100% of the components in the manufactured good, and that includes iron and steel, be American. So we have, but however, with FHWA, they only look at steel and iron, but all the other agencies, they might look at other things. So depending on your project, we can look a little bit deeper for you on what the requirements are. And we have a packet that kind of goes into more detail about the two different acts, and I'll share that with you shortly. And so in order to, when you have a Buy American project, or the procedures that we kind of want you to follow as you go through trying to figure out if your project is Buy American or Buy America project, when you have an opportunity, or if you have a request for a proposal, or if you have a contract that has already been executed, we want you to go through it to identify which of the acts apply. Is it Buy America, or Buy American act that applies for the project? And so once you identify that, we've created a whole packet that kind of guides you step by step on what you need to do. So we advise you to review the pack. We'll definitely make that link available for you. And so we have a grid within the packet that breaks down the two different acts, the two different acts, and also what items are covered in it. So like I said earlier, items covered under Buy American, all materials incorporated into the work, including steel, cement, concrete, slurry, stone, sand, and gravel, and etc. So that's all materials, right? Whereas in Buy America, it's all manufactured goods. However, when it comes to FHWA, they only look at steel and iron, as I mentioned earlier. And so, again, this is just a breakdown of what I've already kind of gone through already, but we made that available to you so that you can have that information in front of you, so you can know how to handle those type of projects. So once, again, prior to the bid, you want to, and maybe you're creating the opportunity within Groundworks, or whenever you're setting up the project within Groundworks, we're asking you to go ahead and click yes for Buy American and Buy America, or whichever one applies for you. And if you're not too sure, still click yes, because it'll still flag you and it'll flag us to make sure that we're tracking that project, to make sure that we are remaining compliant. We remain compliant. So we ask that you collect certification letters, or certifications from, which are basically letters from your vendors when you're requesting quotes from them on the different materials that you need on the project. So we have a language that we now have sent and made available. You can send this to the vendor if they choose to use it. Some of them already have their standard. Some of them have never been exposed to Buy American or Buy America, so it might be the first time when they interact with you. And so you can kind of give them a sample of what we're looking for. And that is available, again, in that same guide. And this is somewhat of the language we're looking for. We're just saying that the supplier represents that all materials under the quote is domestic and meets the provision of the Buy American and or Buy America Act. And so you would just, they would just insert whatever act is applicable. Again, because we are dealing with federal projects, we need to make sure that we're running these vendors through sanction space. And if you need help with that, we can definitely help you out with that. So going back to earlier where I was saying that you need to make sure that you check whether or not it's a federal project, and if it's Buy American or Buy America, and within Groundworks, when you create a PO in Groundworks, it now inserts some language on the actual PO so that the vendor is aware of the fact that this is another place that the vendor will see that this is a Buy American or Buy America project. So after you've been awarded and you have done the PO, we're asking that you use a procurement log to track all the materials that will be received on the project site. And so we have you enter the vendor name, the PO, the item that is supposed to be, the city, state, the name of the manufacturer, and whether or not you have the certification letter in hand. Yes, just one moment. Technical difficulties. All right. Okay, so this is an example of a completed Buy American compliance letter or certification letter for a quote. And we're looking for the name of the manufacturer, the location of the manufacturer, the date, any specific applicable information that might be needed. And the major thing we're looking for is that they express that they're compliant with, or the material is compliant with Buy American or Buy America Act, whichever one is applicable. And so, again, so we've gone through the process of looking for vendors, going through groundwork, and checking sanctions base to make sure they're okay, and now you've placed the order, and now you have the materials arriving on your job site. And so we want to make sure that you have a designated person on site who is aware that, of course, this is a Buy American project, and they need to be cross-checking the information on the procurement log to what is being received, or the material that's being received. And they're verifying this information as well. And so we say that if you have material that's on the job site that you're not too sure whether or not it's compliant, maybe you see a sticker on it randomly that said made in China or something that is just giving you an alarm that it's just questionable, you want to make sure you keep that material separate on the job site. But with any Buy American job site, even if you have temporary material that's going to be on site and you know that, you want to keep everything separate. So the Buy American material in one area and everything that's not American or non-American made in another area within the job site. And so there's some unique examples that come up that I want to share with you. Again, this is not all. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. We have the mill second seal. Suppliers may be able to certify that the steel was manufactured in one of a finite number of mills. And suppliers may also be able to certify that all these mills manufactured all the pipes in accordance with the applicable Buy American provision. And then commercially unreasonable, for the Buy American Act, you can request a pre-bid waiver if the cost of the domestic good exceeds the cost of the non-domestic good by 6%. And then also for Buy America, you can request a pre-bid waiver if the use of a domestic good would increase the cost of the entire project by 25%. If the waiver is approved, the contractor will be allowed to use the non-domestic good. However, this is not something that you handle on your own. You will contact myself or David Peisch for guidance. And so within the Buy American packet, we have a checklist to help you stay compliant, just to make sure that you're keeping up with everything. So your procurement logs, your material certs, your deliveries, and dealing with your subcontractors as well. So the internal compliance review, what are we as Keller doing as a company? So what we're going to start doing is on a quarterly basis, we're going to randomly select offices or projects for an internal compliance review, whether it's going to be Buy American compliance review or EEO or affirmative action compliance review. So the findings will be shared with the office senior management as well as the president of the company. And then based on the results of the findings, the compliance team will work with your office to make sure that your employees or whomever is handling these areas are brought up to speed so that there is no issues down the line if we are audited by OFCCP or any government agency. So these trainings can be done remotely, through webinars similar to this, but a little bit more interactive. And then, or we have a on-site training or retraining in that case, in some cases. So that is where we are. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Okay. David is here, and he has a couple of things to say as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple points with respect to the EEO program and affirmative action program that we have. One is Joy has pointed out many requirements that need to be met, the paperwork, the boxes that need to be checked to be compliant with federal law. But really, our goal should be to meet the goals that that are given to us to actively recruit the underrepresented classes, females and minorities that are underrepresented in our company. And we should make a genuine good faith effort to do that, in addition to all of the boxes that we have to check. And so recall that the company, the policy of Keller is to hire the best person, the best applicant that we have. But certainly we have in recruiting only because we are underrepresented, and because of that, there is an unfair bias in, and if we just rely on references from existing employees and other recruitment practices, which could result in prejudice against many groups of people. So just keep that in mind. We hire the best person, but let's try our best to get applicants in the door that will help us achieve our goals. And then secondly, Buy American, it is a real problem. It could be a real problem. It's a real issue with the new administration. It's just another area where they're going to be looking at enforcing. Clearly, that's a major issue for the Trump administration. So I could see them stepping up enforcement of that. And recall that Hayward Baker did have a violation of the Buy American Act about 4 years ago, which resulted in a very onerous agreement that we had to abide by. So it was costly to us, and cost us not only quite a bit in dollars, but also quite a bit in time. So that's all I've got. Thanks for attending, guys. Joy? Any other questions from anyone?
Francisco, did you have any questions? Okay, so again, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions that come up maybe after this webinar, feel free to reach out to myself, Jesus, or David, or Linda concerning EEO, and Kyle concerning EEO or Buy American issues or questions that you might have. And thanks again for joining. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.